Greetings to our SPY conversation today with Mike Iandolo, who's on the board of the Classic Motor Museum in St. Michael's. And Mike, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Craig.
I know that being on the board of this museum means that you both collect cars and exhibit cars, but you've taken on some additional tasks, as I understand it, to help expand this museum. Tell us how that's going with the potential new property.
So you're correct. I'm on the board. I've been involved with the museum for the last several years in a lot of different capacities, but all of us have been singularly focused on the expansion over the last year, and in particular, executing our donation or our fundraising campaign over the last 6 months. So the museum made the decision basically that we needed to grow our space. It was to allow us to have more capacity for our museum exhibits, to provide a hands-on laboratory for our training. And after a big search, we found a property in St. Michael's at 906 South Talbot Street, which had been abandoned for years and actually the subject of past intrigue and controversy with previous purchasing attempts, and we figured it was the perfect property for us. So we put down a contract with a plan to close in 6 months, and the key challenge was then to raise $1.15 million to buy it. So my involvement has been with the planning in terms of the financial planning and the business modeling for how we will absorb the property, as well as in helping out Tad DuPont and the executive team with all the various fundraising activities we've had. And we've had a variety of them to bring people in to come in and learn about the museum.
That's wonderful. And I know the first phase obviously is acquisition. Are you close to reaching the goal?
We actually reached the goal today. We closed on the property, and as of 12 o'clock, we have the keys to the property. The next stage, as you're hinting, is the renovation that will follow. But this first milestone is pretty significant for us because in a short space of 6 months, we were able to raise the $1,000. We actually raised a little bit more than that because some of the donations that came in were directed for us to do the renovation afterwards.
Well, congratulations.
Yes,
It's a great achievement. There's a lot of activity, as you know, going on in this whole region, and I know you folks worked hard to get there. I had not heard the news for the SPY. This is breaking news. So thanks.
Exactly.
Thanks for coming on and talk about it. Let me go back for a minute and ask for people who might not have had the chance to visit the museum in St. Michael's. If we were to go there today, what would we see?
Well, we actually have a very idyllic campus, I would describe it, on Marengo Street off of Talbot Street. And it's actually quite common to hear people say they're not really aware of the museum. Basically, we're off the beaten track in some respects. We have on our campus 3 buildings. The most impressive building is a 4,000 square foot Amish-built pole barn that houses our exhibits of classic cars. At any given time, we have maybe 20 to 25 classic cars, ranging from cars from the 1900s all the way through the 1950s, American, British, German. It's really a nice representation of the history of automotive technology. Also on our campus, we have an education center because that's a key component of our mission. And that building has classrooms and meeting rooms. And then finally, we have our administrative building where we have our finance person and administrative office.
I think the commitment you all have to education and the apprenticeship program is really something quite remarkable. And tell us a little bit about that and where those programs are headed.
You're correct. This is a very unique program. If you look at what typically is done with museums and so on, similar to what the Chesapeake Maritime Museum does in the maritime space. We made the decision a couple of years ago that we could fill a critical niche to help train young men and women to be automotive technicians. It turns out, and you may only know this if you've tried to have your car repaired, that there is a real need for trained auto mechanics, not just throughout the U.S., but especially on the Eastern Shore. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We don't need to get into it. People making decisions on how they want to have their careers and so on. But the fact of the matter is that we're just not seeing enough young men and women going into that trade. And it's a challenging trade because you have to be good with your hands and you have to be pretty smart.
It's challenging, but it's a good career, right? I mean, there's a lot of opportunity. This is a skill you can take probably all over the country. Hopefully you'd stay on the Eastern Shore, but you can.
Right. Well, our goal is to help build the number of certified mechanics. The near-term benefit of that would be the local shops who partner with us. And obviously there's a benefit to the young men and women because it gives them a clear pathway for their own career, which may not have otherwise been available to them here on the Eastern Shore. So the program basically is done in conjunction with the State of Maryland Department of Labor. We're certified by that department. And basically what we do is we partner with local automotive shops who hire a young man or woman to be an apprentice, and they make the commitment to hire the individual as full-time employee, pay them at a starting wage commensurate with someone who's starting in that capacity. But they also make the commitment to make sure that in their operation, they assign one of their more experienced mechanics to mentor the apprentice. And then where it gets interesting is we then make the commitment where once a week, we bring those apprentices to our campus, our education center, where we provide them the ability to do online training with a program that has essentially been certified to give the training for these students. And the program then is a 3-year program where the students or the apprentices combine online coursework, 5 hours a week at our campus, and the rest of the time they're working at the shop getting the practical hands-on. So the shop owner makes a commitment to hire the individual. Shop owner makes the commitment to allow them to come and spend 5 hours a week at our at our training center. And we make the commitment to provide that apprentice with all the tools they need to be successful. We give them the training course, which is an online training course. We provide them an allowance for a toolkit. And when people think of tools, any amateur thinks of buying a wrench or two, but when you're an auto mechanic, that's a $4,500 stipend that we give them, and we give them a laptop. So they do the program for 3 years, and at the last phase of that, they start taking the certification tests, and once they're certified, and this is the best part, is they become a journeyman mechanic who could go anywhere and receive the higher wages associated with that.
So this is a day, I think, maybe to celebrate end of phase 1, but give us a little bit of a glimpse of what phase 2 is like as you look forward to this new location in St. Michael's.
So first of all, one thing we need to do as our first step is to thank all of the people who donated. We were so surprised and so happy to see the broad level of support from the town of St. Michael's and the neighboring towns. And it was best exhibited the fact that in raising all that money, most of the donations were small amounts. So we had broad community support. And one of the reasons I think was not only the interest in what our mission is, but the fact that when we are finished with our phase of renovation, we will have a nice welcoming center to St. Michael's, which will be our museum. And one thing I didn't mention, and it's another key component of our whole program, with that online training that we do at our education center, we actually have an experienced retired shop owner, Jim McCrae, who's originally from mainline Philadelphia, who sits in the room for the 5 hours a week with the apprentices and serves as a proctor. But the most important thing he does is he sort of helps them if they run into problems with the online material, and he gives them, from his experience, guidance that only he can do. So we have a list of other members who are eager to come in and help when we have the garage set up to provide the hands-on. And we see that being a real strong enhancement to the program to help these apprentices, and then ultimately as well with the general population. The next step now is to make sure that we have donations to support the renovations and the ongoing operations. And as any museum, it's the case, there's a need for making sure you can keep the exhibits going and all the infrastructure. And we've been very lucky through a lot of hard work by Tad and the team over the last 10 years to build up our current campus so that we can operate on a shoestring, because we are pretty much all volunteer. And the next phase now is a little bit larger, a little bit more ambitious. So, if you're able to make a donation, please do. Any amount is appreciated. As we've seen so far in this first phase, every little bit helps. It can start adding up to big money pretty quickly. So that's something that we really are looking and requesting for help on.
I'm sure that support across the community and beyond will keep coming, and I promise you we'll check back from time to time to see how it's going. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.